This episode of Fans Talk Lucha Underground has been brought to you by the great members of our community, aka the Squared Circle of Trust. Because of your help, we're able to afford the cost of producing, hosting, and distributing this content. It's really your way to support us directly. If you haven't started supporting us yet, and you enjoy our time together each and every week, please go ahead, pledge $1 a month or more on squaredcircleoftrust.com. Now, it's time for Fans Talk Lucha Underground episode 36. From the Fans Talk Podcast family at fanstalkpodcast.com, this is episode 36 of Fans Talk Lucha. Now, in this week's episode, we sit down once again, almost a month since the last time that you and I talked, to talk about the best wrestling on TV today, Lucha Underground. My name is Garvin, and you and I are going to do this one together. Steph, she couldn't make it, but hopefully she'll return soon enough. And we have so much to talk about. This week, we're not just covering one show. We're not just going to skip everything that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. No, instead, we're going to start with March 7th's Death Comes in Threes, also known as Season 2, Episode 7, and we're going to run through to March 30th's Season 2, Episode 10, aka El Jefe Returns. Now, I cannot go through every show at once. It's just too overwhelming. So I'm going to watch an episode, and then I'm going to record the reaction to it. That way we can kind of pinpoint each episode one at a time and, decompress in between before we go on to the next one. Now, I don't want to necessarily rush myself, but I know our time is very important. I don't want to keep you here all day. So instead of the normal 20 to 30 minutes per episode, instead, I've set a timer for myself. I'm going to go with 10 minutes per episode. We're going to skip wins and fails up until the very end just to kind of give a win-fail for the overview of these 4 episodes. So if it feels a bit fragmented, really that's why. I didn't record this in one session. I didn't watch all episodes in one day. No, we are going to record this episode of FTL over a 2-day span. So it might sound a little bit different from section to section, but, still excited. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the recap and review of Season 2, Episode 7, which aired on March 7th, 2016. Let me go ahead and set my timer here. I got a little stopwatch going. And let's go. This week, again, Season 2, Episode 7 aired on March 7th. Death Comes in 3. There were 4 main stories that were really focused on this week. So we had the whole Mac, Sexy Star, Marty the Moth and his sister saga that's happening right now. We also had Drago and Jack Evans, their little feud that they're building. We also had Cage versus Johnny Mundo, which didn't necessarily happen, but there was no disqualification. And, of course, the main event this week was Prince Puma versus Pentagon Jr. versus Mil Muertes for the Lucha Underground Championship. So we'll start right at the beginning. Pretty much we opened up with the recap of what we already knew about the whole story between Sexy Star, Mac, Marty the Moth. So backstage Mac basically went up to Sexy Star, acknowledged the fact that this is not the Sexy Star that we are used to. She's not the fighter. She's not the ass kicker. And that's who he wanted to see, not just in general, but in his corner for his match later on in the evening, against Marty the Moth. Now, that happened, next. And she agreed, and it was very nice to finally get that acknowledgement. That was something that we had complained about previously, about the fact that they really hadn't acknowledged that this was a different Sexy Star, that, that she had basically been kidnapped, and it seems like, Mac is the only one that has known about this or talked about this since. So it was good that we had a little bit of continuation there. But the match was Marty the Moth versus the Mac. Very brawl-like. They both basically were trying to beat up one another. It wasn't necessarily a wrestling match. It wasn't necessarily a lucha libre contest. It was a all-out fight. Very good in that aspect. Mid-match, though. Well, honestly, to me at the time, it felt like mid-match, but honestly, it was the end of the match. And that is when we saw the debut of Marty the Moth's sister. And I probably have this name wrong because they said it twice and each time sounded differently, but I think it's Metapulsa or maybe Metamulsa. I don't know. Again, I just stood up, walked over here to record after watching. I didn't look online. It's also, by the way, April 1st when I'm recording this part. So I don't really want to go online right now. But overall, not as creepy as I thought this was going to be. Like, I was really expecting someone just as creepy as Marty the Moth, but she was kind of ominous. She was, she had the real, small headdress, like just right up in the front of feathers, maybe 5 or 6 feathers. She had wings made of leather, almost tattered, almost like patchwork. So it was really cool looking, but overall not as creepy as I was expecting. But basically she got involved in the match in that, lights went out, she came out, this weird music box type music was playing, that distracted Mac, that distracted Sexy Star, and we saw Marty the Moth able to pick up the win. I thought this was very good for the storytelling aspect of it, just to, you don't necessarily want to see something as powerful as the story that they're trying to tell with this to end, soon with Marty the Moth getting beat. You want to see, you want to see Marty the Moth continue to play those mind games and his sister to continue to play those mind games with Sexy Star to get one over on the Mac because, overall that helps drag this out, which I totally appreciate. I think this is very good. So yeah, but it ended with an attack on Sexy Star at the end and it was very, very brief. But overall, I felt like this was a good way to continue the story. Again, my only emotional conflict with this was that, I was expecting someone at the level of Marty as far as creepiness, as far as douchiness, and his sister was pretty silent overall, kind of ominous, not really impactful as far as the overall look. It was cool, but just not what I was expecting. Like, Marty definitely looks like that, backwoods redneck type. Like, he's got those crazy eyes and the really douchey smile and stuff. And you can tell that he's kind of messed up. With her, she had a mask on. It was really kind of hard. It was really kind of hard to tell what was going on. So, backstage, we did see, more of a continuation of a feud that they've been building for a little while, and that is the fact that Jack Evans, after defeating Drago, has been calling himself the Dragon Slayer. Drago finally confronted him about that, and he kicked a couple lights and broke some glass and showed off his ninja style, right? And challenged Jack, basically saying, if you are the Dragon Slayer, then slay me now. Which is funny. It's funny to say that out loud. But that's basically the premise. That's basically what he said. Jack, however, was not alone. We also had the Darewolf. I felt like this was really odd. It was an odd pairing just because in my mind, I had, looked at both Jack Evans and the Darewolf as really similar. So, I suppose it makes sense. I suppose, they have the similar styles, similar looks. So maybe it makes sense to pair them up. I was just kind of surprised that they went that direction so quickly. But nunchuck battle. And this is the thing about Lucha Underground. Lucha Underground does some cheesy stuff. This nunchuck battle basically, and I'm just guesstimating off of memory, but I want to say it was like at least 30 to 45 seconds of just the camera changing who it was looking at, and all they're doing is looking at one another and twirling their nunchucks. So it had its moments of like, all right, this is gonna be cool, to okay, this has gone on too long. So, but overall, it ended up with Jack and the Werewolf basically taking out Drago with the nunchucks. And granted, all three of them, I know I didn't say this before, but all three of them had nunchucks at this point. It was kind of crazy, but overall, I thought it was, a good way to show the new partnership, show that they have a common enemy in Drago, that Drago was still able to pretty much stand up to them, but they got the better of them. And here comes Aerostar in like this neon blaze of glory, where you only saw like a little emblem in his chest and like lights around like his mask. And that was it. That's all you saw. And that was for a good 15 to 20 seconds. And then he basically chases them off and is now on Drago's side. So potentially what we're going to see is an Aerostar Drago versus Jack Evans and the Darewolf tag team match. Not sure where this is really leading to, but it's interesting. It's interesting for sure. So I do know that I am way running out of time. So let's try to not rush, but try to get through everything. Cage versus Johnny Mundo, no disqualification. Big build up to this match. Never happened though. And the issue was that Taya came out. Taya, you know, she basically helped Johnny Mundo defeat Cage the week prior or a couple weeks prior. And she basically says, Mundo would take this match, but he's already kicked Cage's ass. So now it's her turn to do the same. And this match was really interesting. It was really well laid out. Cage was definitely hesitant, but unlike most of the matches where you see a guy who obviously has an advantage in the strength department, they normally toy, or not necessarily toy, but like they kind of push them to the side, as far as male wrestler pushing the female wrestler to the side, not really interested in getting involved. But he got slapped one time, and that was it. Clotheslined her. We had slam after slam. She kicked out. She kicked out of a pin attempt, and this was like within the first minute. And somehow, like, there was no hesitation. She got right up and went on the attack of Cage. Got a 1 count pin attempt, and really showed not just that like the gender equality issue is like not necessarily really an issue here in Lucha Underground, but it really showed that she could hang with the guy who is incredibly overpowering. Cage, you'd have to imagine is least, and I'm bad at estimating measurements, but I think he's like at least 150 pounds more than her. Obviously swole as shit, right? And she is not. But she was able to hang with him momentarily at least. So he got back into it, and this is where the match got really odd, at least for me, the American wrestling fan, because we don't see this kind of stuff normally. And so basically he powerbombed through her into the fence, like the fence wall that separates the ringside from the loft style crowd area. He then powerbombed through her into the ring post. He dragged her into the ring, powerbombed her again, like full powerbomb. Then powerbomb threw her into the corner. And normally you would think it would end there. But no, he pulls out a table. And you would think, okay, well, she's going to put him through the table. Nope, actually, he set up 2 tables and he suplexed her. He basically stood up on the second rope, suplexed her off, like out of the ring. He picked her up out of the ring and suplexed her through both tables. It was crazy. This is something you don't see anywhere else. And you have to hand it to Taya. I mean, she took it. She took everything that anyone has ever taken from Cage, and she kept getting up. She kept standing. And, you know, I think that's a really good way from a storytelling standpoint to show how good she is, that she can withstand that type of punishment. I don't know if they would do that with Sexy Star, you know, going back to Sexy Star versus, shoot, I can't even remember his name. This is terrible. I know. I do this every time, but like the Ezekiel Jackson guy, whatever his name was, big something. I know. I'm sorry, Diva Jill. Anyways, yeah, she took it, and it was, you know, we're talking like a good 4 or 5 minutes of this type of punishment. Mundo finally comes out, tries to get one over on him. We saw beer bottles, 2 beer bottle shots. We saw, man, it was just crazy how strong Cage looked. He took 2 beer bottle shots, one in the back of the head, one in the face, and didn't care. Mundo escaped the ring, threw Ty at him, and he hit her with his finisher. And man, it was just a good match. I think overall it made Cage look to be that huge, unstoppable machine that they've been trying to push him as. And Taya looked great as well. I mean, you have to hand it to Taya. She was definitely not up to his strength level. But, you know, she still looked strong. She still looked like she could compete against, you know, the rest of the roster. You have to know, I mean, you have to, you know, understand that Cage is not like the rest of the roster. He's much bigger, much faster, and, you know, much more dominant than a majority of the rest of the roster. So for her to stand up to that and for her to be able to compete with that, it was just great. It was just great. So main event, we had Prince Puma versus Pentagon Jr. versus Mil Muertes for the Lucha Underground Championship. And this was pretty much everything that we expected it to be. It was very brutal. We had Prince Puma and Pentagon Jr. showing some unity as they went against Mil. That was very unsurprising. What was also unsurprising is that unity pretty much stopped about halfway through the match and they started to fight each other. So from a storytelling aspect, you know, the failure in this is definitely on Puma and Pentagon because they could not put their hatred for one another, or at least their you know, competitiveness for one another to the side to take down the stronger guy. And Mil retained the title. So some good spots in this match. We had a really, really fantastic sequence with both Puma and Pentagon Jr. super kick party on Mil. I want to say there was at least 6 individual super kicks plus a double, 2 at the same time super kick. I thought that was pretty great. And you would think that the match would be close to be ending there, but no, that's when they went after one another once again. Mil took advantage, and basically hit both. It was like it was a double flatliner, pinned both of them to retain the title. So I thought overall, very, very good match. Lots of suicide style dives onto Mil. I think Mil took at least 6 or 7 of those, probably more. And that's from the ring, from the crowd, from, whatever. They were both going crazy. Prince Puma hit a 450 splash, at one point, a shooting star press, which was very good at, during this entire match. So it was a very good match, very good title match. Mill showed his dominance. I'm glad that they didn't take the title off him this quickly. We have Aztec Warfare coming up. I definitely want to see what happens with that match. So this kind of, this is good. This is good that we see Mill competing in a very competitive match right before Aztec Warfare. But that's not how the event ended. Phoenix came out, and Phoenix, we had a video package with him earlier in the night. He was walking outside. He was walking inside. We were shown some highlights and lots of overlays of fire effects, and very cool. Just kind of building up Phoenix and who he is and what he can do. And at the end of the main event, he comes out and he basically hands in the Gift of the Gods title because he wants a shot at Mil Muertes next week, Season 2, Episode 8, for the Lucha Underground Championship. Can't wait. Every other match has been very, very good between these two. And, I think this match for the title will be just as epic. So anyways, that was Season 2, Episode 7. We're going to take a quick break. And I'm going to take a quick break. You're going to hear like a little audio effect to show that we're, going to the next segment. But, stay tuned. Season 2, Episode 8 is coming up next. Let's do this. And we are back here. Fans Talk Lucha, Episode 36. Last time, we talked about Season 2, Episode 7 of Lucha Underground. This part, we're going to talk about the very next episode, Season 2, Episode 8. It aired on March 16th, 2016, and it was titled Life After Death. Now, I know I went a little bit long last time. It happens, right? You get into the moment, you get into talk about Lucha Underground, which last week was very fantastic. So much stuff going on, so much stuff to talk about. This week, this episode, not as much. The primary stories that we really worked through was Phoenix and how he was preparing for his fight against Mil Muertes in the main event. We also had Team Fight versus the Disciples. A little bit of build up for next week's, Aztec Warfare for Season 2, Episode 9. So you had a little bit of that with Puma, Johnny Mundo, Rey Mysterio, and Dragon Azteca. We also had Chavo versus Tejano in a bull rope match. And of course, the main event, Phoenix versus Mil for the Lucha Underground Championship. So let's start off with we'll just talk about the matches. Team Fight, which is Ivelisse and Helico and Son of Havoc. They took on the Disciples of Death for the Trios Championship. And if you remember, the last episode, the way it ended, we had Ivelisse basically making a deal with Katrina so that they could get that title match. However, the stipulation was if Team Fight loses, they have to leave the temple forever. By and large, this was, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a disappointing match. It was an okay match overall. I mean, both sides traded advantage throughout. You had Team Fight working very well together. You had, the Disciples, be able to split them all apart and really take advantage of that, only for Team Fight to really show that they gel very, very well together. So, lots of great chemistry we saw this episode with Team Fight, specifically Son of Havoc and Helico. They worked very well together. Ivelisse was kind of like that weak link role where she was taking a lot of the offense from the Disciples of Death. But in the end, Team Fight wins. It was a very short match, say, right about 5 minutes, maybe no more than that. It was really, it just seemed to kind of just fly by, not because of how awesome it was, but, it just seemed like a very quick match. So not a whole lot to talk about, but it is good. It is good to see that Team Fight will remain in the temple. I like all three of them. I think they all add a very nice piece to the roster. And overall, just the three of them as individuals have a lot of quality behind them. So, very happy with that. Very happy with Team Fight winning. Backstage, when it comes to the Disciples of Death, obviously them losing the Trios Championship, that is bad. That is bad for the partnership that they have with Mil Muertes and Katrina. So Mil, very angry, destroyed them. He basically took them all out. He was about to, land that death blow, kind of attack in the back. Katrina urged him to spare them and focus in on his match later on in the night. So, who knows? Who knows what this is going to lead to if the Disciples of Death will take part in the Aztec warfare. You have to imagine they would. But overall, there is a lot of dissension there, a lot of, it's Disciples of Death. I mean, we've seen similar things before where they're just not as impressive in the ring compared to their opponents. The next matchup, again, for me, and Steph was very similar in this respect, Chavo versus Tejano in a bull rope match. I love bull rope matches, but generally speaking, I don't really care about this. They have not done anything to really draw me in, to make me invested in this story. So really, I could care less. The things to note for this match, in particular at least, is that Chavo was with the crew. So we had Cisco and Cortez, and basically ordered them in the ring to take out Tejano for him, and they refused. They walked out. I thought that was very interesting. I don't know if that's just leading up to Aztec Warfare, where it's everyone for themselves kind of thing, or if it's just that, obviously they realize that Chavo is terrible, and they aren't very good either, so continuing to partner and help with Chavo doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. They need to, bump it up and do something different. So, I like that. I really enjoyed that piece of it. Hopefully it does lead to something a little bit better for them in general. But again, another very short match. Chavo got probably about half of the offense. Tejano got half of the offense. But Tejano won the match with a sit-down powerbomb. Very strong, looked very good in this match for Tejano. Again, I'm not invested in his character. I'm not invested in his story. Same thing goes for Chavo. I just don't care. So, I don't know. I know you guys might, and this is something that we've kind of argued over, whether it's the Facebook comments or in the Slack community or even on YouTube. We just can't get into it. It's just boring, really. By the way, as far as the build-up to Aztec Warfare, that's going to be the very next episode, so Season 2, Episode 9. Again, backstage we had Puma working out, Johnny Mundo working out, them both looking focused for that match. Mundo really laying it into Puma with sarcasm and saying that he will not take Puma lightly this time around, as he did in the first Aztec Warfare and the first time around that they, were in that feud, and basically said that he was going to win. We also had Rey and Dragon Azteca, them talking about, the upcoming match. They both received invites. Dragon Azteca, we're going to finally get that debut to see how that story is going to really develop. So that's super interesting as well. And of course, seeing the in-ring debut of Rey Mysterio, I think would be, nice. I mean, Rey, for all intents and purposes, has been, my real introduction to Lucha Libre when it comes to, his time in WCW, when it comes to his time in WWE. So to see how his style really works with everyone else, keeping in mind that he's a lot older now than he was before that, he's gone through a lot of different injuries. So it should be really cool to see how he matches up with the rest of the roster. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about Dragon Azteca and how that story progresses. Cause that is basically the overarching story that we've had this entire time. Dragon Azteca versus, Dario Cueto. Now you've got Katrina and Mill involved in that as like a third party of that. Plus Puma, part of the Aztec god, family. And yeah, really, it would be, I'm really looking forward to next week or the next episode to see how all of those stories tie together. That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting some, not necessarily closure, but, advancement, really. I'm looking for advancement. But part of that advancement is what's going to happen with Cueto. Cueto has been, quote unquote, training Matanza for Aztec warfare. And, we saw another video package of him standing outside of temple number 2. And, you're just hearing sounds of Matanza just destroy people, destroy the sacrificial lambs that they've put in his way to get to a point where he was ready to join Cueto and follow Cueto to the temple. And that's basically what was made clear here, was that Dario Cueto was going to take Matanza and take back his temple in the next episode. So that's pretty cool. Phoenix versus Mill was your main event. Again, another great match between these two competitors. The story that they're building with these two is very, very cool. Just because of how personal it is. The last match, or one of the last matches, I think specifically the casket match, we saw Mill basically rip a portion of the mask off of Phoenix just to insult him, to, disrespect him. And we saw signs of that. Again, we saw basically the same general scene with the mask being partially ripped off and chair shots, so much blood from both competitors, and it went both ways. That was really cool. Normally I'm not totally a fan of the Phoenix Mill matchup because Phoenix is always pushed as this underdog. That's the story they're telling. He's kind of the weaker of the two, but he never quite gives up. This match was somewhat similar, but Phoenix had a lot more offense, had a lot more fight in him, even did the same thing to Mill in that he ripped off part of his mask, bloodied him up, opened him up with chair shot after chair shot. And, it was great. It went from the ring to the outside to the crowd. It went all over the temple. And again, another great match by these two. Ultimately, Phoenix, he cashed in his Gift of the Gods title for this shot, and Phoenix is your new champion. This is completely surprising. This kind of took, for me at least, this kind of came out of left field. I don't know about you, but I was not expecting Mill to enter Aztec Warfare or to go to that next episode with that match and not holding the title. I was figuring they would give Mill a very lengthy reign, very similar to what they did with Puma, but it's over. Mill is no longer your champion. Phoenix is now your champion after the match, even though Aztec Warfare, as we knew it, was going to be a 20 competitor gauntlet style battle royal. I mean, you guys know what happened last year. It was very, very cool. We're going to see that again. Last season's Aztec Warfare was for the number 1 contendership. That's what we were supposed to get here. Instead, Katrina dropped the bomb that, because Phoenix defeated Mill, Phoenix is now your number 1 entrant into Aztec Warfare per tradition, and this match is now for the Lucha Underground Championship. So it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. And Mill is going to be your last entrant at number 20 overall. My guess is they will be in the final 4. They will be in the final 2 probably. So this will most likely end up being a Phoenix versus Mill, the final 5 minutes of Aztec Warfare. That's what I'm predicting. You also have Johnny Mundo. You also have Puma. You also have Matanza. I don't see Rey Mysterio getting that far. Dragon Azteca, maybe Dragon Azteca is part of that final 4. You also got Cage in there. There's just this match is so unpredictable, but seeing how stories are aligning, stories are going, it almost feels like it's going to be Mill and Phoenix as we move forward, unless, Dragon Azteca plays a larger role as we move forward. Rey Mysterio, the same thing. Matanza, the same thing. So, a lot to be excited about, and I cannot wait. I have the next episode queued. Season 2, episode 9. This is Aztec Warfare, and I'm gonna go watch it right now, and I'll be back in just a few moments. And we are back. Season 2, episode 9. Aztec Warfare 2 aired on March 23rd. Wow. So good. So very, very good. A lot of great stuff in here. The rules. 20 luchadors all fighting for the Lucha Underground Championship. Only pins and submission count to eliminate the overall competitors. We had 21, but we'll get to that in a second. Realistically, a lot of good names in this. A lot of there was one surprising name that was not involved, and that was Pentagon Jr. Pentagon Jr. did not get the invite. He showed up and he basically interrupted Phoenix preparing for this match to tell him that he will win the title that night. Katrina obviously disagreed. She did not give Pentagon Jr. that invite. And, instead, he's going to have to sit out. Pentagon Jr. said that he will enter regardless and will be involved in the match. But, again, Katrina disregarded that, said it's not going to happen, and put a little warning out there to Phoenix that Mil Muertes would kill him and take the title home. So here are your entries for this match. Again, we had 20 entries announced. They are Phoenix at number 1, Rey Mysterio, King Cuerno, Argenis, Mundo, Joey Ryan, Puma, Jack Evans, Taya, Cage, Mascarita Sagrada, Marty the Moth, Drago, Mac, Chavo, PJ Black, Aerostar, Dragon Azteca Jr., Tejano, and Mil Muertes. Now, generally speaking, I try to write notes as I'm watching, but overall, there wasn't a lot of time. There was so much good action. And I have to throw some props out there. Rey Mysterio in at number 2 lasted the longest. Wait. Here's your final 4. Your final 4 for this match was Matanza. Spoilers. Matanza entered in at number 21. Dario Cueto came out and basically said it is time for him to take his temple back. He, as the overall owner and overall controller of the temple, made a slight change to the match and entered in his brother at 21. So Matanza is entered at 21. Your final 4, Matanza, Chavo, Rey, and Puma. Wow. It is so difficult to put into words like how awesome this match was, just because it was so much stuff that took place. We had, just to go over some of the things. Rey Mysterio looked amazing. Specifically for those who are WWE fans, we've seen Rey Mysterio go from really good to really mediocre. He got overweight. He got slower. Obviously, the injuries played a lot into that. But Rey looked in the best shape that he has been in years. There's no chub. He looked great. He was able to match up with everyone that he competed with throughout the match. It was very cool. Another thing that took place was Joey Ryan. Joey Ryan, he entered in at number 6 and immediately went to the other side of the ring, did not enter the ring at all until the very end where, whatever. But Joey Ryan handcuffed himself to the metal barrier that holds that loft style audience area. And he basically handcuffed himself there so that he could not be pinned. Now, one thing to note is that it's pin and submission. So theoretically, someone could have submitted him, potentially. But at the same time, throughout the match, we did see that only submissions that happened in the ring counted. So there was that addition to it throughout. So I think overall having Joey Ryan partake but stay on the outside for a majority of it was very smart, very logical, and at the same time very detrimental to him because he got cheap shotted by just about everybody. He got mist thrown in his face via Drago, just punched over and over again by different people. So it was entertaining for sure. Famous B was walking around the ring, handing out his business card, making sure that people know that he could make them famous. So both the audience and he also went around to the wrestlers specifically. We did see him go up to Joey Ryan. Again, very, very, very cool. Some other things that took place during this match worth noting was that the Mundo Cage Taya feud that's happening continued throughout this match. Mundo was surprisingly eliminated at number 3 by Prince Puma. But he did not leave. He did not leave the area. He stayed in the temple. And when it was time, he attacked Cage. He attacked Cage with a cinder block, breaking it over his head, which allowed Taya to get a pin. So, Cage eliminated at number 6. Just to kind of go through this, there were pretty much 2 stars made with this. One was Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio eliminated, I want to say, at least a handful of people. At least 5, maybe 6. Rey eliminated King Cuerno, Argenis, Marty the Moth, Mil Muertes. You would think that Mil Muertes, he had this, but actually Mil Muertes was eliminated at number 11 thanks to Rey Mysterio, and I think Prince Puma helped in that with a pin. But the other major star that was made during this match was Matanza. And overall, I know I've been trying to avoid the talk. I've been trying to avoid the spoilers as far as Matanza, as far as people's feelings about Matanza. But I did catch a bit of a negative vibe overall, whether it's on Facebook or the Slack community or over on Reddit. It seems that people were a little bit disappointed with Matanza. You know, we did see Matanza at the end of the final, at the end of the episode 8. And he was blood drenched. He had like this, like the full body suit, overall type thing. Crazy, evil, mask that he had on that it was basically made of leather, covered up his mouth so you couldn't see his mouth. You could only see his eyes. Really interesting character overall. Based on the story that we know, based on how they're presenting him now. And in this match specifically, I have to say, outside of the negative reaction that he's getting from the internet, despite the reaction that he got in this match in general by the crowd, it's strange because Dario Cueto obviously gets cheered. He deserves it. The dude is fantastic on the mic. He's fantastic in that role. But for some reason, the crowd just would not allow Matanza to get the same type of reaction. A lot of boos, a lot of criticisms on the internet. But ultimately, Matanza was the other star, the major star that was made in this match. And I have to say, I thought he was great. Suplex after suplex. Yeah, it's German suplex, T-bone suplex, all kinds of different variations of your suplexes. The dude looked great. He's beastly. He's pretty much larger than a majority of the roster. Very similar to your Cage, your Mil Muertes, your Mac, your Marty the Moth in height. Build is not as toned as, say, a Cage. But overall, like, just the ability to suplex everyone that he did, was fantastic. It was just good. It was just so good. I thought the way they built the character was very good. I was really surprised with the live crowd reaction towards him. But here is your order of elimination. Argenis went out first, thanks to Rey Mysterio. King Cuerno went out second, thanks again to Rey Mysterio. Johnny Mundo went out number 3, thanks to a Prince Puma pin. Marty the Moth went out number 4, again, Rey Mysterio. Chavo submitted. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me take that back. Mascarita Sagrada was eliminated at number 5 thanks to a Chavo submission. It was a bit of a camel clutch. I think they tried to call it something different on commentary, but that's the general idea of what it was. Cage was eliminated 6th via pinfall thanks to the Johnny Mundo cinder block attack. Taya was able to pick up that pin. Taya, though, almost immediately was pinned by Phoenix at number 7. Number 8 was Jack Evans. He came in at 8th. He was eliminated at 8th. Aerostar got that pin. And this was a good sequence overall with Aerostar going after Jack Evans. You also had you had PJ Black competing against Drago. Drago came at 13th, but PJ pinned him. So he was eliminated at number 9. Again, Jack Evans eliminated at number 8 by Aerostar. Tejano came in at number 19, but was the 10th elimination right around the 24-minute mark. Nope. Beg your pardon. I wrote these notes. I'm trying to follow them. Actually, PJ Black was the 10th eliminated by Tejano through a pin at number 24, or at 24-minute mark. Mil Muertes was pinned. It was a double team. It was Rey Mysterio and I think Prince Puma might have been Phoenix. And it was a pinfall at number 11. At number 12, this was after Matanza was announced as part of this match. Matanza takes out Phoenix at number 12. Number 13 was the Mac, taken out by Matanza with a pin. Number 14, Aerostar, taken out by Matanza with a pin. 15, Tejano, eliminated via pinfall by Matanza. Number 16, Joey Ryan. Again, he was handcuffed to the outside. Matanza went out of the ring to Joey Ryan, basically ripped the handcuff off of the iron bars that are attached to that little, ring barrier for the loft audience. And, he went in, suplexed him 3 times with like roll throughs. Basically there were 3, or triple, gut wrench suplexes. Again, very cool. A lot of suplexes from Matanza, a lot of power moves from Matanza. Looked super impressive. So Matanza eliminates Joey Ryan at number 16. Number 17, Dragon Azteca Jr. He came in at 18, eliminated at 17. Was only in the match for maybe 10 minutes. Didn't do a whole lot. Showed some flippy abilities. Showed some speed. But really didn't show anything. I'm really surprised by this. I really felt like Dragon Azteca Jr. was going to come in here and be a part of the Final Four and show that his part of this entire story was powerful, but he didn't. Matanza eliminates Dragon Azteca Jr. at number 17, right around the 32-minute mark with a pin. At that point, we had Matanza, Chavo, Rey, Mysterio, and Prince Puma in the ring. And again, not the Final Four I was expecting. I did expect Matanza to be there. Did not expect Chavo to be there. Did not really expect Rey to be there. I thought it was going to be Matanza, Dragon Azteca, Prince Puma, and Mill or Phoenix. Or, at least one of those two involved in this finish, both eliminated very, very, very early on. Chavo was the first eliminated from the Final Four. Matanza with a pin right around the 32-minute mark. After that, we had in the 19th elimination, Prince Puma. Again, Matanza with a pin. Rey was kind of there, but not really. Rey Mysterio, right around the 36-minute mark, pinned by Matanza. Your new Lucha Underground champion is Matanza. Now, again, I thought Matanza looked super impressive. It wasn't just the suplexes. It wasn't just the dominance that he had, but he also threw out there like a standing moonsault, which is very cool. I think it was on the Mac. Again, I don't share in this negative vibe that the crowd showed, that Reddit showed, that a majority of the internet is showing. I'm really interested to have Dario Cueto back in charge, to have Matanza as your champion. Really your final two, Matanza and Rey, surprising. You would think that it would be, a guy that they've built up in some respect, either Mill, Phoenix, or Prince Puma. Pentagon Jr. was another guy that you thought was going to, be in this match. Pentagon, by the way, did get involved. He did take out Mill on the outside with a chair. Once Mill was eliminated from the match, Katrina went after Vampiro, slapped him in the face, basically going after Pentagon Jr.'s master. Overall, a lot of great stories are going to come out of here. Specifically, you've got the feud between Pentagon Jr. and Mil Muertes. So you've got Katrina and Mill versus Vampiro and Pentagon Jr. You also had, what Matanza did. Matanza obviously, dominating, especially when you were, at least I was expecting, Phoenix to be there, or, Rey Mysterio and Dragon Azteca Jr. to, have some kind of strength or power or, lasting ability in this. And again, Ray did last the entire match. Ray came in at number 2. So basically he started off the match, lasted about 36 minutes of match time, thereabouts, maybe 38, 39 if you consider commercial breaks and all that stuff. But yeah, I think overall, this was a very good match. It leads to a lot of good stories. Obviously, there's some more feuds that are going on. You still have Drago and Aerostar versus Jack Evans and PJ Black. You still have Johnny Mundo versus Cage happening. So, overall, thought this was very good, very interesting, and I'm excited to see what happens next, especially with Matanza as your champion, with Cueto back in his temple, El Jefe, being in full control. Should be interesting to see how Mil and Katrina fit in here, specifically because they held that control while Cueto had ran off. Should be good. Next up is this week's episode, the very most recent episode, season 2, episode 10, which aired on March 30th, 2016. I've got it queued up. We're gonna go ahead and watch it. Take a little pause, but we'll be right back and wrap up this episode. Stay tuned. And we are back here. Fans Talk Lucha, episode 36. Just finished watching season 2, episode 10 of Lucha Underground, which aired on March 30th, 2016. El Jefe is back. Not only is El Jefe back, we also have the return of the live band. Totally different vibe. This episode compared to the rest of the season. Having Cueto back is such a epic thing. Much needed for sure. So a lot of stuff going on with Cueto, whether he's, backstage, he opened up the show in the ring, to kind of take back the temple and make it known that this is his temple. So, very cool way to open up this episode. We had Cueto in the ring, announced a few different things. The first is that we will have a new trios, tournament, and that we're going to find out soon who the number 1 contender will be for Matanza's Lucha Underground Championship. Pentagon Jr., though, interrupted and said the only reason why Matanza won was because Pentagon Jr. wasn't involved, and he demanded a title match. Cueto, not really interested in giving it to him. Doesn't necessarily see Pentagon Jr. as championship material. Doesn't necessarily see Pentagon Jr. as being the number 1 contender. But Pentagon Jr., the master of the arm breaker, made it clear that he will get that match, forced Cueto to book it, by threatening to break his arm. So we have that as our main event. The other matches that took place this week, we had Johnny Mundo and Taya teaming up to take on Cisco and Cortez. We also had Team Fight versus the Disciples, Sexy Star versus Mariposa or Mariposa. And then again in the main event, Matanza versus Pentagon Jr. So let's just go ahead and talk about just having Cueto back. So we got involved in a few different backstage segments. The first one was him and Katrina, basically Lotus, almost in like a bodyguard type role, was outside, basically making sure no one would enter, Cueto's office, or at least that's how it felt. That's how it seemed. But it didn't matter because Katrina, Black Magic, was able to get in, without an issue, get out without an issue. So in this segment, Cueto basically, tells Katrina that this is his temple. Katrina made it clear that Mill is the rightful champion, and when Mill becomes champion, she will take the temple back. Now, Cueto wasn't too keen on that, wanted to make it clear that he was willing to put the past behind him, and if they partnered up, being Cueto and Katrina, that they could rule the temple forever. She didn't seem into that idea, though. Now, later on in the evening, we also had Cueto talking to Rey Mysterio. Rey, obviously there because of the death of Dragon Azteca, blames Matanza. Cueto swears that it had nothing to do with Matanza, and realistically, Cueto doesn't want to continue to have these family fights over historical things. He doesn't want to continue to live in the past and is willing to put the past behind him if Rey is, so that they can work together. And he wants Rey and Dragon Azteca Jr. to compete in the temple. Rey didn't necessarily agree verbally, but they shared a drink of tequila, which I guess is the sign for an agreement. That's how it came off. So it looks like we're going to have a future with Dragon Azteca and Rey Mysterio. I'm sorry, Dragon Azteca Jr. and Rey Mysterio competing in the temple very soon. Before we talk or continue the conversation about Cueto and Matanza, which again I think is very awesome that Cueto is back. It definitely had a much nicer, much more appealing vibe for me. Let's go and talk a bit about our first match. It was Johnny Mundo and Taya versus Cisco and Cortez, and a few important notes, at least that I made. One, they weren't called the Crew. Cisco and Cortez were announced by their names. There was no mention of the Crew except for once in commentary by Matt Stryker. But it seems like potentially they have dropped that name. And in the process, I don't know if it's just dropping the name or what, but these guys worked really well together in this match. By far the best that Cortez and Cisco have looked in any matchup. And I might be dropping my overall displeasure with these two. I think this combination of them working as a tag team, it really felt good. The only question I have though is why this match? It didn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense. You know, there aren't many tag teams, but this week it seemed like we saw more of that tag team action. So, and by tag teams, I mean just two, not trios, but two. So we've got two tag teams here, with Mundo and Taya and Cisco and Cortez. We also have Sexy Star and Mac, Mariposa and Marty the Moth. So, you know, potentially, I don't know if this is where they're going to go, but it seems like at least this week there was a little bit more focus on duos. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. But, overall, I like that idea. I like that idea. So, but outside of that, I don't necessarily understand why this match happened. I think it was beanbags in the Slack community, specifically our Lucha Underground channel, noted that, you know, it seems like Taya has been brought in for the role of getting beaten up. And that's basically what happened here. Not a whole lot of offense. Johnny Mundo didn't really do a whole lot in this match either. He was mostly, you know, getting some damage in, but then making the tag for Taya to really get involved for the majority of the match. We did have Cage come down to distract Mundo and Taya. That's really what caused the win here. So, yeah. Still not a fan of Mundo. I really do want to like Taya. I think she has a good look to her. Her wrestling ability is very good. I think, you know, her being able to stand up to Cage, a few weeks back, her, you know, doing as well as she did in Aztec warfare. It just shows that there's really good, opportunities for her in singles action. But the combination with Johnny Mundo, it's just like she's, there to get, a majority of the offense. So Mundo is safe. Just odd. Outside of that, we got some more background for, Marty the Moth Martinez, Mariposa, and, basically the Moth tribe that once ruled, Aztec. So, overall, it was really interesting, kinda, it kept that creepy vibe. And overall, I thought it was a really powerful segment. The only confusion I had was it was almost as if they were implying that, he was reading from a book, like he was telling the story of Mariposa and, how that mask has, been, handed down throughout the family, and really talked about the wealth and the power of the Moth tribe. But, anytime that they actually showed the book, as far as the pages, they were all blank. So I don't know if, that was just I'd have to imagine everything happens for a reason, and they were showing that maybe to show that, there's some kind of discrepancy, that maybe the Moth tribe weren't necessarily, a thing or a big deal, and this is just Marty trying to, push his agenda into this whole family battle that we have with Lucha Underground. Or if this was just, a symbol of him writing, history as we move forward, with Mariposa joining Lucha Underground and really taking control over things. Maybe this was just, a symbol of the, what happened in the history is one thing, but they're going to take back, and that will be, the new chapter in the history book. I don't know. It was just kind of weird. Just caught my eye. I don't know if you felt the same way, and what you got out of it, but there's that. We had Sexy Star, with the Mac, versus Mariposa with Marty the Moth. And this was a very interesting match, as far as the story that's being told, as far as the way Sexy Star was handled, Mariposa specifically, how she was handled. We're seeing some similar stories happen here with dominant competitors. So, when you look at Matanza, really built up and made to look like he's unstoppable. And right now, that's what they're doing with Mariposa as well. She looked absolutely dominant and unstoppable. And, you can, look at how Sexy Star continues to look scared, continues to look, like she is under Mariposa's power. So a lot of fear there, but totally got destroyed. This was a very short, very dominant squash match. So Mariposa won. Before we get to the main event, we also had Team Fight versus the Disciples. So, Trios Championship where, Angelico, Ivelisse, and Son of Havoc had to defend the titles against the Disciples of Death, but it was an elimination match. So, order of elimination, we had Ivelisse. She was eliminated thanks to the outside interference by Katrina. Tracy, who is, I forget which mask he has, but there's a number 13 on it. So that's Tracy. He was eliminated by Angelico. Angelico was eliminated by the purple mask guy. They said his name a couple times, but it's like, it was like 3-4 words. I don't know. I didn't write it down. I'm sorry. The gold mask guy, which I know includes the term negro in it. He was eliminated by Son of Havoc in probably the best spot of the entire match. And that was, basically he took out the purple mask guy. He took out, Negro with a double stomp. So they were both bent. Well, the purple mask guy was bent over, while the gold mask guy was, laying on the ground, and he did a flying stomp on purple mask and then bounced off of him onto the gold mask guy, then went and hit a standing moonsault for the pin. And best spot of the night, best match of the night, I thought. And overall, we saw Havoc pick up the win by making the final elimination. Such a good match. Overall, I just thinking about how things have been going. Ivelisse, she's looked at as the weak link of the team. I know commentary was kind of fighting against that idea, just because she's not weak. She can handle her own. But if they had to make a change, again, going with this idea of, we saw some more tag teams, as far as duos being used on this show, I really would love to see what Son of Havoc and Angelico can do together as a two-man team, because they were fantastic together. They gelled so well together in this match and really, made the biggest impacts through. But yeah, match of the night, very, very good. Obviously we are going to get a tournament coming up soon to determine who will be the number one contender for the Trios Championship. So, I doubt, a regular two-man tag team is going to be a thing, but they definitely showed signs of it this week, and I'd be okay with that. But that leads us to our main event, Matanza versus Pentagon Jr. for the Lucha Underground Championship. And again, this is something that I talked about at Aztec Warfare, just how monstrous and dominant and strong that Matanza looks. And it's not just a big guy that can't work, that they're trying to push over as this huge, dominant force. Like this dude is legit. All of his suplexes, all of his, just his entire repertoire, his entire look. It's awesome. Everything about Matanza right now is awesome. And he took the match to the outside, just threw Pentagon Jr. around like a rag doll. They really talked it up in commentary as far as Pentagon Jr. Prior to this match, Cueto, when he carried the title to go get his brother, he told Matanza that, he wanted Matanza to break his back and rid the temple of Pentagon Jr. so that he never returns. They really pushed this idea in this match because Pentagon Jr. Got hurt. And that's what they talked about in commentary. Obviously you also had, Pentagon Jr. telling the ref that he was hurt. He was holding up the X to get the ref to stop the match, but the ref refused. I don't know if it was just him scared of Matanza, because Matanza kept on the offensive. But yeah, just another quick, dominant squash match. At the end of the match, Vampiro entered the ring to kind of aid Pentagon and try to figure out why the med team was not coming, why the ref was not doing his job to protect Pentagon Jr. Matanza attacked him and then took Pentagon Jr. back onto the outside, continued to destroy him, put him through a table. It's so good. I mean, this character, this wrestler that is Matanza, I definitely love it right now. So, Pentagon Jr. was taken out on a stretcher. He was taken out with an ambulance, which Vampiro helped. And Vampiro, left in the ambulance with him. So, should be interesting to see where that goes next. Most likely we won't see Pentagon Jr. for a couple weeks, but I have a feeling that we're going to see Pentagon Jr. versus Matanza once again. So, that was this week. Let's go with our wins and fails. Again, I wanted to do an overall win and fail for this episode of Fans Talk Lucha to cover everything from season 2, episode 7, all the way to episode 10, which happened this week. And it is so difficult to pin down just one thing. But I think for me, I'm just gonna say it. Cueto back in the temple, back in charge. His work with Matanza, his work in segments, backstage, awesome. That's definitely my win over the last four or so episodes. So I'm glad to have him back. I think Matanza has a huge future. I'm looking forward to Matanza versus Mill. I think that will be an epic, two big, strong style fighters going at it. I think that's going to be a great match. My fails. Fail. I guess you could put a fail on Chavo being in your final 4. You could put a fail in Joey Ryan really not getting, action that I was hoping for. I really want to see what Joey Ryan can do as a wrestler, not just as a character. And we've yet to really see it yet. But outside of that, we really have not seen anything that I would necessarily call a fail over the last few weeks. I think overall, again, with Aztec Warfare, with Cueto coming back, with Phoenix winning the title off of Mill, I think there was enough good and enough great storytelling to, disregard anything that was tiny and maybe bad. But that's it. Final thoughts. While I love being able to watch multiple episodes of Lucha Underground back to back, that is something that, every time we end an episode of Lucha Underground, I want more. I don't want to just stop right there. So that was kind of cool, being able to watch 4 episodes over a span of a couple of days. But, I never want to do that again. I never want to miss a week. So yeah, Fans Talk Lucha is back, and we're going to be doing it weekly again. Hopefully we'll have Steph back soon. But we'll see what happens. And, we'll go from there. This series, as well as the rest of the podcast released through fanstalkpodcast.com, are supported exclusively by our Patreon subscribers. And you can subscribe today for as little as $1 a month to receive early access to content, as well as get your ears on some exclusive content that we produce throughout the month. My name is Garvin, and we will see you again next week. Adios. Fans Talk Lucha is part of the Fans Talk Podcast family and can be found at fanstalklucha.com. The Fans Talk Podcast family is a subsidiary of Tigar Creative, LLC.